What's up, guys? It's Eric from Rare Candy, and today we're taking a look at not necessarily a new deck, but a deck that's been updated with some new cards from Fates Collide. So today we're taking a look at Magnezone Raikou, and it's kind of a deck that saw some play back during the Cities format. Yours truly took it to a bunch of tournaments as well. So it's a deck I really like, and I was really excited to be able to update for this new set, Fates Collide. With that giving us a new trainer card that we can use and the generation set that gave us the new Jolteon EX. I feel like there's enough new stuff to where we can update this and make it more adaptable to what the current format is. Um, let's just dive right into it. So Magnezone is kind of the lifeblood of the deck, in case you guys didn't know. So Magnezone, very similar ability to what we've seen before with Pokemon like Emboar, Blastoise, Feraligatr Prime, etc. So it has the magnetic circuit ability as often as you like during your turn before you attack. You can attach a lightning energy from your hand to one of your Pokemon. So really powerful ability. This type of ability has always been good, historically speaking, in the game. So the idea is you get a Magnezone up on the board, and then you can put lightning energy as many as you want down onto all these different attackers. So that he's kind of what makes the deck tick. Then he has an attack called Thunder Blast. For 2 lightning in the colorless, it does 100, and you discard a lightning energy attached to him. Not the best attack. Um, if you have to use it in a pinch, you can. It's not a big deal. But typically speaking, you don't really like to use this attack. But like I said, if you have to, it's not the worst attack to use. Then fighting weak, resistant to metal, and 3 retreat cost. The retreat cost is a little problematic just because they can Lysander stall you, especially stuff like Trevenant break decks. One thing they like to do is Lysander up a big beefy bench setter like Magnezone, and then just kind of spread around you. So that's a deck we need to keep in mind when building a list for this. Set is Magnezone, and it is worth talking about the actual Magnemite too, because there's 2 different ones you can use currently, but I definitely think this is the right one to do. It's the Magnemite that has the Sparkling Induction ability. As long as he is your active Pokemon, its retreat cost is 1 less for each Magnemite on your bench. So if you start with one of these and then search out another one, it suddenly gets free retreat. So that's definitely good. Because you always hate starting with one of these Pokemon. You would prefer it to be, something like a Raikou that can take a couple hits. So for our evolution line, we're playing a 3-1-3 count. It's pretty standard, I think. I really don't think you need more than this. Depending on your meta, you can debatably cut a rare candy and increase your Magneton count. Like if you have just a ton of Vespiquen, Vileplume, or Trevenant decks or something like that running around, it might be worthwhile to change the count. But I think generally speaking, this is kind of a standard for an evolution line like this. So we're also playing 1 Shaman EX. It's kind of a standard thing to play. Every deck usually plays at least 2, but we also run Octillery, so that's why we're only playing 1, just in case we really do need to search it out. Like if part of our Octillery line is prized, we can use this instead. So the main attacker of the deck we have is going to be Raikou. We're playing 3 of him. So Raikou, 120 hit point, basic non-EX, that's already really good. Has the ability Shining Body. As long as there's lightning energy attached to him, damage done him is reduced by 20. So as long as you have energy, you effectively have a free hard charm on your Raikous. And the ability is, what we've seen before with Pokemon like Keldeo EX and Delphox from XY and the new Flareon EX, all similar attacks like this. But this one's called Thunderlance, does 50 plus 20 more for every lightning attached to him. So you can see the obvious synergy there between Magnezone and Raikou. You can just load up a bunch of energies onto this Raikou, and you can maybe take some one-hit knockouts, but I think most of the time you'll just be two-shotting things, just depending on what you're playing against. So really, really good non-EX attacker, resistant to metal, only 1 retreat, which is really, really nice too. Fighting weakness could be potentially a problem if Zygarde does become more and more popular, but overall it's still a very, very good non-EX attacker, and that's why we're playing 3 of these guys. We're playing 1 Pikachu EX. This is kind of a card really just to help you get one-hit knockouts more easily, because if you want to take like a one-hit knockout on like a Mega EX, like something like a Mega Manectric, you need so many energies on your Raikou in order to do that. So Pikachu just kind of lets us knock stuff out in one hit much easier. So Pikachu EX, 130 hit points, that is definitely the downside to this card. It has a powerful attack, but it's definitely a glass cannon. A lot of times it's the type of card you want to throw down to kind of just take like your last 2 prizes off a big EX. So typically speaking, we don't want to use Pikachu, but depending on the deck, we might need to in order to take some one-hit knockouts. So, and it's also a really good attacker against things like Yveltal EX, because you have to discard all of your energy to use his attack. So, but I don't know. You could still make the case that Raikou is just better because it can knock out Yveltal in those situations. But you guys get the idea. It's good for taking big one-hit knockouts that Raikou struggles with. That's because it has the Overspark attack. For a Lightning and 2 colorless, you discard all Lightning energy attached to Pikachu, but when you do, it does 50 damage times the number of energy discarded. So discard 4 energy, do 200 damage. That knocks out pretty much any non-Fighting Fury belted EXs in the format. So not to mention any stage 2s. So yeah, it's a lot easier to do 200 with Pikachu than for Raikou. So that's why we're only going to play 1 of these guys. So our other attacker we're playing is the new Jolteon EX. And while I'm on the topic of this, I just want to give a quick shout out to fellow PokeTuber Yellow Swellow. We really needed one of these in order to make this battle video. So props to him, really good guy. Make sure to check out his channel too. He puts out a ton of content. So really grateful that he hooked us up to be able to do this video. But so yeah, Jolteon EX, 160 hit points, okay for an EX. Swift, not too much of a relevant attack. We're really just looking at flash rate. So during your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from basic Pokemon. So one thing this deck might struggle against is Night March. Night March, it's all these low HP, easy to knock out basics that only take 1 energy attachment and that can knock out pretty much anything you have. So Night March, for example, all they need is a single DCE, and they can usually knock out your Raikous, whereas you need a whopping 3 energy just to knock out something like a Joltik or a Pumpkaboo or Mew. So Night March is generally just a really, really tough deck to beat. But since we're playing Jolteon EX, it really helps us, stay in the game. So Night March pretty much exclusively plays basic Pokemon. So as long as you can get a Jolteon EX up and running, you can potentially just win the whole game just with this card. But we do run another card to deal with that too, I'll get to. But Flash Rate is just such a good attack. Like I said, if Zygarde does become popular, even though Jolteon EX is fighting weak, if you get a Flash Ray off before they get their Zygardes powered up, you can kind of shut them out of the game unless they do some sort of like escape rope Lysander shenanigans on your Jolteon. But so yeah, super good card. It really helps make this deck more competitive. I think it wasn't that good in the Breakpoint format, but now that we have Jolteon EX and this new item card I'm going to get to, I think it makes this deck a little bit more viable than it once was. So that's Jolteon. And like I said, another card to help deal with Night March is going to be Jirachi. Really good card. A lot of you are probably used to seeing this guy by now. 60 hit points. It has the attack Dream Dance. We're not going to look at that. We're really only looking at it for Stardust. So you discard a special energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. If you do, prevent all effects of attacks, including damage, done to this Pokemon during your opponent's next turn. So that means if you're playing against a deck like Night March or Vespiquen Vileplume, these are both decks that generally would just beat something like this Raikou Magnezone deck. By playing this Jirachi, you really give yourself a chance to stay in the game. Same thing for Toad Giratina. That's another unfavorable matchup, I think, if you didn't run this Jirachi. But just running this one card, you can win the entire game just by denying all of their energy against Toad Giratina. So, there's a lot of pitfalls to playing these Stage 2 decks that are reliant on rare candy, and Jirachi is just a really good card that helps with a lot of those unfavorable matchups. So then last for the Pokemon line, we have a 1/1 Octillery line. So Octillery, it's a really good Stage 1 non-EX like setup support Pokemon, but it doesn't give up 2 prizes like Shaman, so that's why we're running it. So Abyssal Hand, once during your turn, before you attack, you may draw cards until you have 5 in your hand. So one thing that's nice about this Raikou Magnezone deck is the fact that everything, for the most part, is non-EX. All of the key cards to the deck are non-EXs. So, you really don't want to play a lot of Shamans just because you're trying to, only give up 1 prize the whole time. And Octillery fits nicely in here and just has a ton of synergy with Magnezone too. Because with Magnezone, you can dump a bunch of lightning energy from your hand, and once you do, you can use Abyssal Hand to refill your hand until you have 5 cards. So it just fits really nicely into this type of deck. And I do think it's worth pointing out the Remoraid that we're using. We're using the one that has Ion Pool, the one that discards a Stadium in play. The other Remoraid has basically the same stats, but the attack makes him switch to the bench. And I think a lot of people would initially gravitate towards that. But here's the thing, you really don't want energy on your Remoraid. You don't want to have to attach an energy and switch it to the bench. You just don't want to have to do that because you want all of your lightnings to be on, your attackers. So I'd much prefer to attach and manually retreat the energy. That way we can get it back. And plus we don't play any Stadium cards in this deck either. So you can potentially use this Ion Pool attack for that as well. So that's it for the Pokemon line. Let's dive into the trainer cards now. I'll go with the supporters first, get those out of the way. So we have 3 Professor Sycamore, discard your hand, draw 7 for obvious reasons. Best draw supporter we currently have. Opting not to play 4 of these just because we have all these different moving pieces in the deck like rare candy and like stage 2s and whatnot. So, and even like a stage 1 as well. So a lot of times you don't want a Sycamore, but it's still such a powerful card. You do need a decent count of it in your deck. So our other primary draw support is going to be N, now that we have this back in the format. So really good card, especially in these slower setup decks. This is another card Fate's Collide gives us that really helps these types of decks, make an appearance in the meta. So typically with something like this, it takes you a couple turns to get going. You lose 1 or 2 Pokemon before you start really attacking and being aggressive. So N can help mitigate that by, adding a little bit of disruption. So each player shuffles his or her hand into his or her deck, then draws equal to the number of prize cards they have. So really good to help you make some good comebacks. And even in the late game too, if both of you guys are down to 1 or 2 prizes, you don't mind ending yourself down to a low hand size because you still have Octillery to help draw out of it. So just has a lot of synergy with everything that we're playing. Okay, we also play 2 Pokemon Fan Club. You could debatably change this to Bridget. I opted just to do Fan Club just because it gives you the option for Jolteon and Shaman. But I've played this type of deck with Bridget and that works fine as well. So maybe if you cut Octillery, or I'm sorry, not Octillery, if you cut Shaman out of the list and go up to a 2/2 Octillery line, I'd probably prefer Bridget, but as of right now, I think Fan Club is fine. So get 2 basic Pokemon, reveal them, put them in your hand. So this is a type of deck, really on the first turn, ideally you want an attacker down, 2 Magnemites, and a Remoraid. So Fan Club is just a card that helps us, potentially get that ideal setup. So that's why we're playing 2 of them. 1 Lysander. This is a card I would like to have more of, but it's just a really tight list because this is a stage 2 deck. So we're playing 1 Lysander, get to bring up one of your Pokemon's bench Pokemon. And also a really important card, we're playing 1 Fisherman. So put 4 basic energy cards from your discard into your hand. So, let's say you use something like Pikachu EX's attack, discard a bunch of lightning, or, your attackers get knocked out. You can keep retrieving this energy and immediately throw it back down thanks to Magnezone. So a really good card. And since we have a new item card I'm going to talk about in a second, we actually don't need to play as many Fisherman and Retrieval cards as in previous versions of this deck. And then, of course, just 4 versus Seeker, just to reuse all of our supporters whenever we want to. And so for the item cards, I'll actually get straight to it and talk about this new item card we have. That's going to be Energy Pouch. It's kind of a card not a lot of people are talking about, but it's great in these types of decks that lets you throw down a bunch of energy out of your hand. So it's a tool card. If it's attached to one of your Pokemon that gets knocked out, you get to put all basic energy attached to that Pokemon back into your hand. So that is really, really good. A lot of times with this type of deck, when I used to play it, is that a lot of times I wanted to Fisherman and Lysander at the same, like on the same turn to take a knockout, but you're just not able to do that. So Energy Pouch, let's say a Raikou with 3 energy goes down, and you have another one waiting on the bench. Whenever it gets knocked out, you get all of that energy back. And that way you can reattach it with Magnezone, and you're still free to Lysander or play a different supporter for the turn as well. So in a way it kind of lets you Fisherman and Lysander in the same turn, which is a really powerful thing. So I really like this card. I'm not sure if I'm completely sold, but in my testing so far, I do like what it does. Obviously against the item lock decks, it's not that good, but I'm kind of liking the results so far. Might have to test it a bit more, but so far I'm digging it. Okay, so we're playing for our search cards, 4 Ultra Ball and 2 Level Ball. Pretty standard things, just to search out all of our Pokemon. 2 Level Ball is especially important just because we play a lot of things that need to be set up, basically. And a lot of stuff is just under 90 hit points. Magneton, Magnemite, Remoraid Octillery, Jirachi. So really good. I like 2 of them in this list. Battle Compressor is another important card because you can dump away supporters to use in the late game. You can even discard energy into your discard and get it back with Fisherman. So I like this card, especially after the first few turns. If Fan Club is still in your deck, that's a card I like to get rid of just because you typically don't need it that much in the late game. 1 Professor's Letter, just because Magnezone does let us attach multiple energies, so it's nice to just make sure that you have them in your hand. 3 Rare Candy, pretty much standard. You could bump it up to 4 if you really want to. Let you skip the stage 1 evolution, go straight to your stage 2. Just a Super Rod and 4 trainers now. So yeah. Oh, and 2 Float Zone. Forgot about this guy. Octillery and Magnezone both have a pretty hefty retreat cost. So in order to prevent people trying to Lysander stall you, or even against Trevenant, if you can get this down like in the first turn or two, if they don't get the item lock on their first turn, this can really help you out in the late game, prevent something like them Lysander stalling you and spreading around you. So yeah, guys, that is the list. I think it's pretty decent so far. Like I said, there's a couple things here and there. If you wanted to tweak to fit your playstyle, go for it. So yeah, so I'm just going to switch over to the battle video and we'll show you how this deck looks in action too. Alright guys, so it looks like we got a game here, and let's see, we did lose the coin flip, which is a little unfortunate, just because these types of decks especially really want to go first. Since there's not really anything you can attack with on the first turn other than Jirachi or maybe Pikachu EX. But let's see if we can make up for it and have a pretty good first turn to make up for going second. And starting Magnemite really isn't the worst thing in the world, just because if we do get a second Magnemite on the board, we will be able to free retreat this one into something else if we choose to. So here I gotta say, I'm a little confused just looking at this board. I don't know what decks you typically see Robosub and Unknown in. Now, I was thinking maybe Groudon, just because Groudon, Primal Groudon plays Robosubs, and maybe they're playing Unknowns instead of Shamans. That way, they don't have any easy prizes sitting on their board. So we see a repeat ball as well. So at this point, it looks like we have an unknown deck we're playing against. I mean, if they get a muscle band on it, they can do hidden power for 30, I guess. But here we do see a Riolu come down and hit the board. So that tells me this is going to be the new, I believe it's Fight Alone or Stand Alone Lucario that came out. I forget the name of the attack, but the new one from Fates Collide. Since I think that's the only relevant Lucario currently in the game. So it would make sense too, because having all these unknowns gives him, additional basics to put down that he can use to draw cards, and they remove themselves from the board later. So, okay, our initial hand is actually kind of decent. We can level ball, get another Magnemite, and then maybe Ultra Ball for either maybe a Remoraid or maybe just a Raikou and start attaching. So here we're just checking to see what's prized. We got Jolteon, not too much of a relevant card in this matchup, but luckily we have 3 Raikous. Pikachu could be relevant down the road, but I think it's better just to play with Raikous in this type of matchup, since 3 energies on a Raikou can knock out a Lucario. Assuming that is what we're playing against, so just going to discard Pikachu and a Lightning, which seems fine. And yeah, that seems good too. That way we can bench the Raikou, attach, and then play an N. And that way we can potentially draw into that Remoraid that we were talking about as well. So let's see, maybe we can get something off the trainer's mail. Okay, none of those cards are really particularly helpful to us. We might just Sycamore next turn. So if we take the Lysander, we can at least discard that and, put it in the discard for next turn. That way we'll have access to a Versus Seeker later in the game. So, and that seems good to me. Even if he knocks out this Magnemite, we still have another one on the bench that we will hopefully be able to power up into a Magnezone. And here we have a reverse value hit the board. That could actually be kind of annoying, just because I believe Lucario by itself normally has 110 hit points. So that reverse value kind of forces us to, yes, 110 hit points. I thought that was the case. But yeah, so that forces our Raikous to have an additional energy to knock him out, which can be a little problematic. But so for you guys who don't know, Lucario has that new attack. It's Fight Alone. It does 30 plus 60 more damage for every Pokemon in play more than you. It's hard to describe, I guess. I hope that makes sense. Like for every extra Pokemon your opponent has in play over you, you do more damage. So if your opponent is playing a deck like Mega Rayquaza and has a bunch of Pokemon on their bench with a Sky Field, you're hitting for an absurd amount of damage with Lucario. So the idea is if you're playing against this Lucario, you have to really manage your bench and try not to bench anything excessive, just because they do extra damage for all of the extra Pokemon that you have on your board. So, but as long as we can get like a Magnezone and Raikou in play, I think we'll be okay, to be honest. Here we didn't hit it, but maybe we can compressor away some stuff and then hit an Ultra Ball off the Trainer's Mail that we have in our hand too. So that seems good. Throw away the Fisherman. Yeah, Jirachi doesn't seem like a good card in this matchup. We could probably get rid of that. Fan Club also really good to discard. Okay. That seems fine to me, I guess. There's unfortunately a lot of cards we don't need in this matchup, so there was a number of things we could have discarded. And so here, I really don't know what the best thing to pick is. I think we have an energy pouch in hand, so maybe a float stone to put down on our Magnemite seems pretty good. I mean, we can maybe get Super Odd in anticipation of a knockout. But yeah, I definitely like the floatstone idea the best here. And unfortunately, we did whiff the Magnezone, and we don't have a supporter in our hand for next turn. But, you know, I think it's going to be really hard for him to take a knockout. He would need, like, the play, I think, like 3 or 4 target whistles to put extra Pokemon on our bench to take a knockout. So, let's see if our opponent can pull out some crazy tricks on us here. But luckily, I do think we're probably safe for a turn or two at least. Okay, so it looks like they got rid of a switch, and I think another Ultra Ball. So he just gets an unknown. And Sycamore, so that's a pretty good turn from our opponent right there. Luckily, we aren't playing Special Energy. That would be really annoying against this thing, to have him reduce our damage by 40 from that Assault Vest, and another 10 from Reverse Valley. So that is one perk to actually playing this Raikou Magnezone deck is, you're only reliant on basic energy, so things like Giratina doesn't stop you, and, things like that Assault Vest on Lucario don't really affect you either. So I really don't know what our opponent could use here. Yeah, just do 30 damage. It seems okay. So he's slowly whittling us down. And again, here we're kind of stuck with not much to work with. Luckily, that Professor's letter will let us thin our deck out just a little bit. And here you can see what I mean. That Reverse Valley is super, super frustrating because it turned our one-hit knockouts into two-hit knockouts. But luckily our opponent bails us out with an N. I don't know what he had in his hand, but he had. I'm guessing it had to be pretty important for him not to want a Sycamore, since he saw we didn't play a supporter for like what 2 turns or maybe just 1 turn. So it had to be pretty important stuff if he was gonna opt to, give us a new hand. So here, this is kind of an interesting hand to work with, you could say, because we want to bench the Shaman to draw more cards, but we don't want to bench a bunch of excessive stuff, so it's hard to say what the right play is. Because even if we bench the Shaman, we wouldn't be able to draw many cards. So I think what we're going to do here is Lysander, a different Lucario, and I think this is a pretty good play. Um, I don't know why we Lysandered that one. In retrospect, we should have definitely brought up the one that had the energy on it. So that's a really dumb misplay. I have no idea why I did that. Um, so we'll Thunderlance, take a knockout, and whenever we get a Magnezone online, we'll be able to just Sky Return to knock out this already damaged Lucario at some point. So, and we do hit the Ultra Ball off the prize, so next turn we will have that option. And even if he knocks out our Raikou, the energy pouch, we'll get all of that energy back into our hands. And so we get double target whistled, which is pretty annoying. Especially because it's Pikachu EX. It's a really easy card to knock out. So, and he hits us with the Hex Maniac. So this guy is trolling us so hard this turn. um, okay. So potentially we can use Static Shock Magneton's attack. You flip a coin. If heads, they are paralyzed. So maybe that'll buy us a turn. Or we could attack with Pikachu EX as well, because if we flip heads on Pikachu's attack, we will be able to actually knock out this Lucario. Because Pikachu's first attack, it's like flip until you get tails, and it does 30 for every heads that you get. So, a little risky going aggro Pikachu, but you never know. He might not be able to knock it out, even if we do get the tails. So here we're getting our first Magnezone on the board.
Unfortunately, we are Hex Maniacs right now, so we can't do the cute little Shaman combo we were talking about, but we still might be able to take a knockout with Pikachu if we get a little lucky here. And the coin hates us, so we're not going to get a knockout on this Lucario. But like I said, um, I'm not sure if he'll actually be able to knock us out. I think he's only doing 70 damage to us currently because we only have one extra Pokemon than he does. But Pikachu is resistant to metal, so it goes from 90 to 70 damage. So, I mean, again, unless he target whistles something else, I think we're going to be okay for this turn. Well, actually, we need two target whistles to take a knockout, and I don't think he plays four in this list. Or I'm hoping not, at least. Okay, and as long as he doesn't play Hex, oh, thank God, he doesn't Hex us. Okay, so just 70 damage, and now we can actually do that cute little Shaman combo we were talking about. But more importantly, I actually really want to super odd some stuff here, just in case, because we don't know if he plays Puzzles of Time or extra target whistles or another way to keep reusing them. So we really need to shuffle these basic Pokemon from our deck or from our discard back into our deck just to take that play away from him if he does have an extra way to do that again. So that's fine, and it will let us get another Raikou back. So here I'm just debating where I want to attach. I might attach to somebody just to... That seems fine to me. So we'll attach to Pikachu just to thin out our hand a little bit to draw more cards with Shaman. And we know he has teammates, so we might want to end. That seems like a good play here. Even though it does give him a new hand, it will at least take away the option of getting exactly what he wants. So I think that might be the best course of action here. Yep. Because he has a bunch of supporters in his discard. If he needed just a lot of cards, he would have taken Sycamore. So he needed something very specific. So it's best, I think, just to take that option away from him. So here we'll retreat. And Shaman's actually a cool attacker here too, because by attacking with it, we actually take away a Pokemon from our board as well. So that'll reduce Lucario's damage. And so here, next up, I guess we'll probably just promote Magnezone since it has free retreat. No point in sending up Pikachu since he'll probably just get knocked out. And as of right now, I don't think he can actually knock out this Lucario since he has these two unknowns on the bench. But I'm guessing he'll probably discard them. Which is, it's kind of a risky play just because it kind of sets him up to be just one hit knocked out by like a Raikou or a Pikachu or something. So my opponent really needs to get down another Pokemon if he wants to stay in the game. And yep, probably just going for Pikachu. Seems good. But luckily, we do have Raikou and plenty of energy in hand. I think we will need one additional energy, but that shouldn't be, yep, it shouldn't be too hard to get since we just top decked it. So, and yep, here we'll just attach 4 lightning energies. And you can kind of see, how this deck has been working. Despite not getting Octillery on the board and, really having to watch down what we played, I think we set up fairly decently here. And it was kind of fun getting to actually play against this Lucario deck as well, just because I actually haven't tested against this. It's a deck that actually a lot of people on our channel have requested in comments and on our Facebook. So it was cool to get to show that off at the same time while showing off this Raikou Magnezone deck. So yeah, guys, that is the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. As usual, be sure to like and subscribe, and also check out our merch site at rarecandytcg.com. And we will see you guys for the next one, okay?